whether I died or was just incapacitated. Because, I have been known to bounce off of asphalt.
A few miles.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 349 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Carden. So, part of what we're going to be talking about today is, well, I don't know that we'll get to it, but you just got back from HIMSS.
Yeah.
And I don't know, do you want to talk about that on a future episode? I know you're going to talk about some of the points of it, but do you want to talk about...
Well, the points I had laid out for today are from the HIPAA Summit, and I got some great stuff at HIMSS. And then some not so great stuff at HIMSS, like a stomach bug. And so I'm not quite prepared to discuss because I'm still getting over the stomach bug that I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no crazy stories like the time you and I went.
No. Well, you weren't there.
So I don't make the crazy stories happen.
No, but... Well, the stomach bug also limited my ability to be out interacting with the general public.
Yeah. Now, I will say I do somehow make sure that when the crazy things start happening, that they continue.
Yeah, that's the key is, that looks like it could be an interesting story. Let's go there.
The whole time Donna's looking at me going, make it stop. I'm like, no, I'm not.
I think it's funny. You just let drunk people be. Let's see if we can get them somewhere. And
Yep. Makes for a story we'll never forget.
Yeah, no matter how much we try.
That's right. So if you want a first-hand account of what we're talking about, then you can join us September 12, 13, 14, and 15 at the PriceSec Boot Camp. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun. So you can go to PriceSecBootCamp.com to learn more there. We're going to be in the beautiful city of Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville. We're going to be in the Louisville.
Not in the loo.
No, not in the loo. But we will be where they are aficionados of a certain type of brown water that I have not been able to enjoy because of other issues with things like that. So the bourbon world, because, I'm excited about the Primo event, the featured Bourbon and Breeches event at PriceSec Boot Camp. But if you want to learn more, you can go to the website or you can listen to our previous episode where we explained why PriceSec is so important and why we're determined to make it a name everyone knows. Yep. Privacy and security, PriceSec. We need you to spread the word because it's a word now.
Yep.
Because I'm tired of saying privacy and security over and over. I need it to catch on.
Yeah, I mean, after a six-pack, it's hard to say.
Yeah. It's hard to say privacy and security 3-4 times anyway for me. You know how I get all tongue-tied and stutter. So definitely need to catch on.
It's a trend now. It's a trend. Like by the time we get to the boot camp, we might just be saying, the P&S.
Oh, no.
Because everybody shortens everything down and as low as they can get it.
Well, that's my intent with this. So I am authorizing anyone listening today to go forth and spread the word PriceSec.
That's
capital
right.
PRI, capital SEC. There you go.
That reminds me, somebody was giving me a URL over the weekend and it kept saying uppercase this, lowercase this, uppercase. Like, you don't have to do that.
It's not now, some of the parms, yes, if people get crazy.
Yeah.
But no, please don't do that. We use uppercase to make it easier to read.
Yeah.
So we'll leave it at that.
That we do. But anyway, show up and have fun. It's going to be great. 3.5 days, man. It's going to be fun.
Very intensive training, but if you need to manage this stuff and worry about this stuff, we're going to make sure you know what to do and what to worry about. Or at least, as some people say, I had no idea how much I didn't know until I came to one of your HIPAA boot camps, and this is a supersized version, so there's going to be a lot more there.
We should see if we can get like an oxygen bar.
Oh, yeah, for when people pass out.
Yeah, I know. So they start hyperventilating about all the stuff they got to do when they get back.
Or all the things they got to just worry about. Not what you got, just the things that could happen.
Oh, yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again to our donors. We definitely appreciate it. You keep the lights on, brother.
Yeah, we need it.
That's right. All right. Are you ready? You ready for the HIPAA?
Say what? I am. I'll say I am.
All right. So let's talk about it.
This one I picked because I was reviewing my HIPAA Summit notes for this episode. And in my notes, I found where I had circled the incredulous look that I had when Lucia Savage, she used to work for OCR, she's well known in the industry. In her session, she said that in talking about patient right of access in a session with all attorneys, that one attorney actually said, "When did that come about?" And it's just a reiteration that people do not, unless you're spending all day, every day in this stuff, there is so much. I mean, and even for a huge chunk of it, I go and read it 3-4 times if I've got to deal with a specific section.
Mm-hmm.
There's just too much. So to not even know that is in there is not necessarily shocking, but to have the attitude that you would have known because you're an attorney, it's always been there. The patient right of access to their records has always been the only required disclosure that a covered entity must make is to the patient or their personal representative. That is the only one that's required. Always been that way. Now, there was layers added to it under high tech to the cost control, cost containment parts of it. But as far as that requirement, it's the only one that's ever been there. So to make the assumption that just because they're an attorney, they truly know everything, it shocks other attorneys how little attorneys know about what's in there so many times.
Yeah.
So don't make that assumption that just because you don't assume I know everything that's in there, but I'll go and look it up and not assume that everything is new.
Mm-hmm.
So HIPAA does say from the very beginning, the patient has a right to access their own records that you maintain. And it is a required disclosure.
How about that?
There you go. Note to self.
Now all the listeners are smarter than lawyers.
I'm not touching that one. I'm not touching that one. I'm not touching that one.
All right. That gets us over to our 405D tip of the week.
Tip of the week.
Yes. Tip of the week. Or you
Top
want
of
to
the
change that
morning
one?
to you.
You
Tip of
want
the
to change
week.
that one to TOTW?
Oh, there we go. The 405D TOW.
Top
TOW.
W.
TOT. We're going to find something, or somebody's going to think of something and send it to us. Okay. Because, there ain't nothing as good as, well, knock me down and steal my teeth. Double D's done told you that. We need something that goes along with HIPAA say what and knock me down and steal my teeth. So help us out. We're struggling. All right. So this is another reason to go to, David, can you remember the website today?
It is 405d.hhs.gov.
Yay! We're going to try this every week so that until he's quick on the draw, folks.
I just want to do 405d.com. So
I know. Which they can't do .com anyway.
I know.
So, this is David's having a block, and we're going to work it through together. This is how we work things out.
Yeah, I appreciate the intervention.
Yeah. So, 405d.hhs.gov. Go there. There's tons of information. And if you go to the resources page, there's a lot of different sections there. My suggestion has been to make this a little bit easier to navigate, but on the resources page, there is a 405D awareness products section. And it's different information that we release, the 405D task group releases as a part of making sure that we're educating the industry. Let's call it that. And if you sign up for the mailing list that you can do at the website, which is
405d.hhs.gov.
I love how he starts giggling. From there, you can sign up for the mailing list, and you will get these when they're released. You'll get notifications of those and all of our other educational resources and notifications. But on that awareness page, the latest thing that we sent out, it was last week when we're recording this. So recently, it was Patient Safety Awareness Week. And on that page, there's a poster that could be used, as well as toolkits designed for small, medium, and large entities. And I was very impressed, Lisa, that just a shout out, we'll leave it at that. The audience is being addressed in each of those toolkits so that it's something that applies in your size organization. And just because it's no longer Patient Safety Awareness Week doesn't mean that you couldn't pull those out. That's all I'm saying. So we'll give you the links to go check it out, and at a minimum, check out the poster. And the toolkits are quite handy, giving you ideas of ways to promote.
You can promote it. It don't matter.
Promote it or promote it. Or post-mote it in this case. Patient Safety Awareness Week. So sign up for the mailing list so that you can get this access immediately to free tools and not have to wait until something comes out with us telling you about it.
That's right.
Yes, indeed. Okay, you ready to move on? I see you're participating today. I haven't,
HHS.
I need help today.
All righty. We're going to dive into our 6 points from the HIPAA Summit.
Oh.
Yeah.
What happened to your voice there, buddy?
You didn't like that?
I hadn't heard you squeak like that in a long time. And I'm not going to go into what was happening when that happened.
All right. So Donna took some notes, believe it or not, at the HIPAA Summit. She's going to
I take notes. I take notes, David, and I use technology to automatically read my screwed up notes, which are not easy to read, and upload everything to the cloud, giving me a PDF picture as well as what it can figure out I said in transcription. Because I use technology. Apparently people don't think that I use technology just because I do it.
If you see somebody writing with a pen on what looks like a piece of paper, you think it's antiquated.
I know.
But no. But nay.
Nay. We are huge fans of Rocketbook technology.
That's right. We're going to see if they want to sponsor the show.
We might want to do that because we use it. I have so many different things, and so does David. But whether it's the beacons or any of those things, I've had to educate people recently on understanding that is technology. So, yes, I did use technology so that I could go back and find these notes in an easy manner.
But if you are handwriting, just want you to know there's a better way to do it.
I know. Get Rocketbook. That's all I'm saying.
Story behind that, folks. You show up in the PriceSec boot camp, we'll tell you about it.
Yeah, that's another story. We've got good stories. There's nothing better than when somebody tries to mansplain technology to me. So anyway, here we go. Oh, by the way, I have to give a shout out to the guy, now I've forgotten his name, who walked past me in the exhibit hall and said, "You have a podcast." And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "You are funny." And I said, "Score." That's all we're really out here for, is to see if somebody thinks we're funny too. So back to the top things. These are the points that I pulled out, and just to hit them, and let's talk about them real quick here, a little at a time. The first one is teach what is an incident versus a breach for when staff are making reports. It isn't a breach until we determine it is one. An incident is what you want people to report. Throwing around the term breach creates a lot of confusion. There are plenty of times that you can have an incident that is not a breach.
Right.
So we need to evaluate every incident to determine if it is a breach.
I think that also allows for people to understand that some things that are minor, because, oftentimes they're like, oh, it was just this. It's, not a big deal.
Oh, yeah. I love those.
And by the way, another service announcement here. Apparently, I have to do it again. Microsoft is not going to call you. I don't know why I'm getting all these floods of people calling Microsoft, and I'm doing air quotes as I say this. It's like, what in the world, people?
No.
Yeah, had another call this past week. Somebody let somebody in their computer. Fortunately, this time they didn't go and buy gift cards, but it's like, good
I don't
grief.
understand it. I'm thrilled that my dad, who is, I always have to do the math. He recently turned 79. When they call him and say that it's Microsoft calling, wanting to connect to things, he says no. And then he will call me and say, Microsoft keeps calling us. And I said, well, fine. You tell them the only person that's allowed into your computer is your daughter and not them.
So a funny side story from a few years ago, had a person call, did the same thing. And they said that they went all the way through and they were trying to install the remote access software. And the guy was like, I can't get the remote access software to install. Tell me what folder it went into and I'll try to help you install it. And they told him and everything. And they said, when I click on it, it gives me some kind of error message. And they said, what version of Windows are you running? She said, I'm on a Mac.
Why are you even talking to Microsoft?
I was like, well, at what point did you think about what you just said? I mean, how long did it take you to go, wait a minute? Why is wait, what?
Do you not know?
Anyway. So yes, teach what is an incident.
That's right. So, and another thing is make sure you know if your business associate agreements require you to notify of incidents, not just breaches.
Don't get me down that rabbit hole.
No, but there's that. Now, I'm not saying the incidents that we stipulate, the pings and all of that stuff, but more and more, and this again gets back to, whose side am I on, the upstream or the downstream? If I'm on the upstream, I'm going to want to know anytime that you have an incident that you determine is not a breach. And I'll stipulate that the pings and the scans and all of that, that's not an incident. But if you go through the process and you decide, which was another thing I almost used today, which is that the new civil cyber fraud initiative that came out in October from Department of Justice. They really starting to come through on that. They done fed up. And so it's the same thing that companies choose to, it's less risky if we just hide the breach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of them do it.
Yeah. And they'll make their own determinations of what is PHI. And we both know that is often wrong.
Yeah. It usually sounds something like this. There was no medical information.
There were no medical records. It wasn't the EHR. The EHR wasn't touched.
Yeah.
So there we go. Big difference. You can have an incident that isn't a breach. But
yeah, but you can't have a breach that wasn't an incident.
You could have a breach that wasn't a security incident. But
Yeah.
you could it would be a privacy incident then.
Right.
But yeah.
I'm making you think.
I know, and it's hard for me to do.
All right.
Number
Number
the current
2.
state.
So number 2, understanding the views of privacy versus security teams.
Yes. And I really like the way this presenter pointed this out. I think it was part of one of the roundtable discussions. Privacy teams, their job is to say, how do we protect data in all of our business processes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, business processes include technology as well as not.
Right.
So that's why we remind you that privacy people are worried about everything. Security says, how do we secure endpoints in the network? That's what security team's worried about.
Mm-hmm.
Their big thing. How do we secure our endpoints in the network? And the servers and the data and all of that. But the actual data itself is the last thing they worry about. And ultimately, it takes both in collaboration to actually protect the business so we don't need to have privacy versus security. Guess what we need, David?
A PriceSec boot camp.
Yes, that's what it is. So it was a really good comparison between the two that I thought, I made note of because it is truly the difference. One is saying, what are all of our business processes? The other's saying, where's all the traffic?
Mm-hmm.
What can get into it? The next one I made note of because I'm glad to see it showing up more often than not. And this was another thing that came up in a discussion at HIMSS. But at any rate, we believe it is time to go beyond, quote, checking a box for compliance.
Amen.
We said that for a long time.
A very long time.
That if we do not focus on compliance, we focus on managing your business risk for privacy and security requirements.
Mm-hmm. I think we had an episode entitled Think Outside the Checkbox, didn't we?
We probably wanted to call it that.
Maybe we did.
We played around with it, but then it was like, well, people get that. But it is an important thing. And I was in a discussion about the importance of, if you're worried about checking the box of HIPAA compliance, you're not worried about privacy and security.
Mm-hmm.
You're worried about doing the bare minimum to meet a regulation rather than doing what's needed to protect the data that is entrusted to you, which we have a great quote on that shortly. The data that's entrusted to you is what you should be worried about, making sure that you are doing everything you can to protect it as you are expected to do. And compliance requirements say what the bare minimum of that should be. So I'm going to do the bare minimum necessary. Let me see, David. Let's get a vehicle that meets all the bare minimum regulatory requirements. Bare minimum.
And then put my whole family in it. Send them on
Yeah.
vacation.
Yeah. And then go on a road trip across country.
Yep.
Think of
Sounds
it that
about
way.
right.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
So that's what checking a box for compliance is.
Mm-hmm. And the next one, what are your vendors' instant response plans for notifications to your business, both upstream and downstream?
This was a huge discussion. It made me get up and go over to my board, which also has Rocketbook beacons on it, and write on there vendor IR plans. What are they? And this was huge. Do you know how many times we've done vetting and asked, do you have a incident response plan to address patient notification requirements? And their answer has 9 times out of 10, not our responsibility. That's our client's responsibility. Maybe 8 times out of 10. It's certainly not 50-50. And it's definitely not close to truly understanding it. But their point was, in this discussion, you got the state laws that are proliferating. Got a dollar word in there. Gonna throw in another in a minute. That are like, time frames and those kind of things. We've got the Department of Justice saying, don't cover things up. Make sure you're telling it and telling it soon enough. You got the HIPAA notification requirements. And the last thing you want is to learn about a data breach a month or 2 after it happened. Anything that's a potential problem. Even more important is they were at HIMSS, there was a lot of discussion about what they learned for their incident plans with the Kronos attack, right? Because Kronos, everybody was using it for their payroll. I can't log time. I can't pay people. How are we going to do that? And they didn't have a plan for it. And they didn't get the communications from Kronos helping them off the bat. They all developed some solution. But if it's a critical vendor, you want to know what they're going to do if they get hit. Whether there's data breach or not is irrelevant.
Yeah. You're talking about business continuity at that point.
Exactly. And that's what they were saying is, I want to know what their business continuity plans are.
Mm-hmm.
And, how many IT companies that you talk to, the MSPs that you talk to, and you ask them what their business continuity plan is. If you're in an area that is hit by a natural disaster, what's your plan to make sure that you can help all your clients?
Yeah, most of them are going to say, maybe they can help a handful of their clients at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Or, a lot of them are going to be like, I'm going to be home taking care of my family.
Yeah, when I got a guy IT, it ain't happening.
Yeah. But
if you've got, let's just say you're in a small area and you got 30 clients, right? That's a pretty solid business for a small area, small MSP, right?
Yep.
If you were really running an MSP with, 30 clients and you were down, you're hit.
Mm-hmm.
You can't function. Whether it's your phone systems or whatever, how they get in touch with you, and you're trying to bring your own stuff back up and juggle with your own stuff when they need you. What's your plan?
That's tough. It's tough.
And it's the same for critical vendors. So we're not just talking EHR. So I want to know, are those vendors going to be able to help me if something goes bad? Things go to poo.
If they go to Georgia.
If everything goes to sugar honey iced tea, what are you going to do? And it was a very interesting discussion, both from a downstream perspective of how am I going to notify them, and do I have that in my plan? How am I going to let them know I'm incapacitated in some way, I'm limited, any of those things. But even more important, if there's a bigger issue, how am I going to let them know I'm here for you and I will be able to help you?
Yeah. We had a prospect come in a few months ago, and the reason they were calling us and some other local IT companies is because their IT guy passed away. And so I was like, well, I mean, did he not have other people in his business? And like, nope, he's a one-man show.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, I guess your instant response plan didn't cover that one.
Yeah, but wouldn't it, like if you are one of those people, wouldn't you want them to say, hey, you know what? I'm friends with David Sims over at Security First IT. And if something happens to me, I need my family, my whoever is going to cover that phone number or make that announcement or my email or whatever it is to be able to say, I've talked with David Sims at Security First IT and he knows how to help you.
Yeah. I remember back years and years ago when I was kind of a one-man show just starting out. I didn't really have a conversation with an IT person per se, but I had written down all this stuff for my wife to say, you know, if I die, these are the things you need to know, and these are some places you can call to get help.
Right.
And that way there was some type of, again, there was some continuity there so that if I was not available, you know, whether I died or was just incapacitated, because, you know, I have been known to bounce off of asphalt.
A few miles.
Yeah. But there should always be something else there to ensure that your clients are taken care of, regardless of what happens to you.
Yeah. And, you know, it's something that I worry about constantly.
Me too.
And with small practices, you should be having these conversations.
Yep.
Whether you're a small business associate or a small covered entity of, you know, any size. You know, we had somebody in the industry, Chris Apgar. Chris Apgar passed away suddenly, and you know, thankfully his wife stepped in, and the other people in the business, and they're continuing to operate and help their clients because there was a plan. There were people, you know, so it is important to know what those plans are. So it is, don't just take them to say, don't worry, we got a backup. Everybody's favorite answer to what is your disaster recovery business continuity incident response? We got a backup.
The funniest part of that answer is that people who sell business continuity know that it's not backup.
I know.
And so when you say, what is your business continuity? And they say, I have backup. You're like, wait a minute. We're not even talking about the same thing.
No. And that's a big thing about making sure everybody's speaking the same language, which again gets back to the PriceSec and checking with your vendors and making sure everybody's speaking the same language. Because if all I'm worried about is checking the box of compliance, we're not speaking the same language. I can tell you that right now. Because everybody's interpreting that. We know everybody thinks they're a HIPAA expert.
Some people have certifications. All right, number 5. And this is probably the best new one for us to use, which is data is on loan to us from our patients.
I love that quote.
I know.
We all need to understand that this data is on loan.
Yep, interest free.
And then to throw in my $5 word, extrapolate that further and tie it in. So several years ago, Severino said, I really wish I could get everybody to treat patient records like bars of gold. The same way you would a bar of gold.
Or a gallon of gas right now.
I know, really? Certainly, you know, Bitcoin if you knew how to have one. But a valuable thing. So a bar of gold, and not the big chunky ones, you don't have to imagine those, the flat ones, which are really what you see a lot of times. But if you say, this is on loan to us, I am loaning you a bar of gold, David, and I need you to take care of it.
That means at some point I'm going to want it back. Yeah.
I want to know that you aren't letting other people take chunks out of my ball. They're just going to chip coins out of that bar of gold. No, I want to know you're going to protect it because I am loaning this to you. And then I want you to make sure that you take care of it properly like you would if it was yours.
That's right.
So you add that together with data is on loan to us from our patients. And then you say, okay, well, that's pretty easy for getting a covered entity to think that through. Oh, we have 200,000 bars of gold? That's a visual. But it's important that we take that down the line downstream to business associates. I mean, do you have any idea how much data you're supporting every day?
No.
None.
No.
But it would be easy to just say it's 2 million bars of gold that are on loan to your clients from whoever they're collecting it from, whether they're healthcare or not, which gets back to the bigger picture of PriceSec that we know is coming. And to be able to say, we know that we are doing everything that is currently reasonable, using standards, and making sure that we're doing the right thing so that our clients who are passing on the need to help them protect those bars of gold, because that's what they're outsourcing. When I hire you, David, I'm hiring you to create that vault.
Yep.
And
take that gold.
Air gap it.
Air gap it.
But I thought it was, quite a great way to look at it and to try to get people to respect it and not look at it's not a bunch of numbers. It's people. And the stunned look you get on particularly technology companies' faces when you see, I know what you see is a bunch of numbers and letters and bits and bytes. That's people. They're people, real people that you need to protect. So I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't ask how many clients do you have or patients do you have. I'm like, how big is the size of your data set in gigabytes or terabytes?
Yeah. I mean, the bigger picture is always looking at it as data and gig and providers and business size and numbers. It's people. It's the people. Everything's going back to people. Always. Everything goes back to people. All right. You ready for the most important one?
Yes.
We may have mentioned it. We may have mentioned it in the one where we talked about enforcement arms, but I still consider this the most important one.
Okay.
Lisa Pino, the new director of OCR, did her presentation, and on the day she did her presentation, she released a blog post, which I don't know of any other HHS OCR director that ever did a blog post like this, but I thought it was great because it's like, here it is in writing. And then she did hers, and the phrases that she was very careful to phrase this the same way. Now, everything else in the blog post, not phrased exactly the same way. There were other kind of, she was riffing a little bit but this statement was carefully crafted. And like we always say, when lawyers say things specifically, it's time to listen.
Mm-hmm.
So here it is. If you haven't looked at your risk management policies and procedures recently to prevent or mitigate these concerns, now is the time to do so. I call that a line in the sand.
It sounds like a warning.
I mean, again, it was carefully worded. Now is the time to do so.
Mm-hmm.
So if you haven't done this in a long time, get on up. Get up.
Yep.
Pay attention. Because it's not, I saw somebody a retired cybersecurity FBI quote, ransomware is going to get worse before it gets better. Really? You needed an expert to get that. Because, most people should just know it at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. It's getting worse every year. Just look at the trend.
Yeah, they've
not been a
found
single
new ways.
year. There's not been a single year it's went backwards.
No, it moves differently. They keep finding new ways.
Oh, yeah.
So whatever you want to put up there, what is that whole thing about, if you're the defense of this and what defends this and, poking somebody's eye out as an example of how do I do it and what's defending this. And, it's one thing after another, but whatever your defenses are, unless you're completely removed from the situation, the attacker will find a way.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be ahead of the game. So my martial arts expert, you know what that means.
I do.
Which is why I'm always not afraid to mouth off when I'm with David.
What was that? Somebody said, I think the person said something like, I'd rather poke David than Donna. And I said, just know Donna is the one who steps behind me when things go bad.
Well, it just depends on what kind of rat's nest you want to get into, isn't it?
That's true.
Mm-hmm. So there you have it. Those are my top notes from with a few hymns things mixed in that I was able to actually attend and pay attention to. Thankfully, I'll have some digital follow-up.
Yep. You got your homework to do.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that is our show for today. Thanks for listening. Remember to follow us and share us out on a favorite social media site. Rate us on our podcasting app. Yes, we have an app. And as always, remember for Donna and myself, the HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.